Are you an investigative professional? Did you know you can find the best private investigator resources using investigatorstoolbox.com? This resource community was built exclusively for licensed investigators and investigative professionals. You can network directly with members, educate yourself through free webinars and blogs, and even create your own customizable research library. Membership starts for as little as 49 cents a day. Download the Investigator's Toolbox app or visit our webpage at www.investigators-toolbox.com.
You guys have been hearing for a long time about how much I love Crosstracks, but now you're going to hear from somebody else. So we got George Gerges here. George is a member and user of Crosstracks. George, tell me real quickly what you love about Crosstracks.
The simplicity of using it and the ability to customize everything that you could do with Crosstracks is awesome. It actually allowed me to take the way that I do my business and implement it into their system. And not only am I able to manage 10 or 15 cases, I'm able to manage 50 to 100 cases with the same effort.
Fantastic. So Crosstracks, the case management system, they are SOC 2 certified. Basically, that's an encryption, really an upgrade. They're the only ones out there that are doing it. So please support this great sponsor that supports our show. Check them out. The links are in the show notes. Crosstracks, if you're an investigator, you should be using them today.
Looking for an insurance agent that puts you first? Every PI business is different. That's why OREP Insurance can shop multiple markets to ensure you get the best coverage to meet your unique business needs. OREP's model is business by the golden rule, and for over 20 years, they've built their business by putting their clients first. So come enjoy a fast online application and same-day certificates of insurance at OREP.org. OREP has coverage for armed investigators, executive protection, and even has a separate policy for security firms. The application takes less than 5 minutes, so visit OREP.org today. OREP.org.
Welcome to PI Perspectives. Today we knock another guest off Matt's hit list. We welcome the amazing Brandon Perron to the show. If you do criminal investigations, you know the name. Brandon is one of the most well-respected criminal investigator instructors out there. So get ready for a great episode. Please welcome Brandon Perron and your host, private investigator Matt Spare.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spare, your host. Well, I finally did it. I got somebody off my hit list, somebody who's been on there for a while. And we were talking about good hit lists and bad hit lists, and this is a good hit list to be on. So Brandon Perron, welcome to the program. How are you?
Thanks. I appreciate it. Really do.
Yeah, it's so great to have you. Like I mentioned before we started recording, you and I know so many of the same people. It's amazing that I think we've only been in the same room once, which is cool.
It's that way a lot in our profession, though. It really is.
Yeah.
But it seems like you know people because I hate to say it, the social media, Facebook, and interacting with other friends and such. So even when you reached out to me, it's like, oh, Matt, it's not like it was bizarre that we never had a really in-person conversation. We said we might have in New York City a few years ago, but we just don't quite remember. If we did or not.
We're crappy investigators. So for folks who don't know you, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into the business.
Well, I started 1985 in the United States Air Force as a law enforcement specialist there. Spent about a year working in a law enforcement capacity, which would be, it was at Lackland Air Force Base, Texas, in San Antonio, and we had 61,000 people on the base. It was an open base at the time. It was like a small city in Texas, and we were a law enforcement agency like any other in the state. So it was a big agency. The investigations division would be like the detective bureau. We ran it all. We had a highway running through us, so we were dealing with civilians all the time. We had a lot of crime. After a year, I applied to the investigations division, which would be equal to a detective in the civilian world, and I got it. And I spent the next 3 years and loved it. And one of the things about being an investigator, it's when I realized I wanted to be an investigator, not necessarily a cop, so to speak. I didn't want to be a law enforcement officer. I don't mind. I like being in law enforcement, but I didn't want to be on patrol. I didn't want to be in uniform. I wanted to be an investigator. I wanted to meet those intellectual challenges. And I've always found it interesting. That's where my passion is.
Right.
When I left the Air Force, I wanted to, look at civilian opportunities. And then I ended up getting an offer from 3 departments and one from the public defender's office in Florida. And at first, I mentioned, the public defender's office. I had to wrap my head around that a little bit because I was like, I was told they're the bad guys and dark side, you're going to go over to the other side. But something I realized when I was in the military and the law enforcement side, one day I got a call from Area Defense Council attorneys, and I had a conversation. They wanted to talk to me about a case, and I said, "Sure, I'll talk to you about it." I had never had a problem speaking to the defense ever. I've always felt full disclosure is important, especially when we represent the government. Right. And I've always recognized that the Sixth Amendment, Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, they're all designed to protect Americans from the government, not from Al Qaeda or from foreign countries. It's from us. We're standing. So I always felt full disclosure was important. I had nothing to hide. I always felt open ethical investigations were crucial to what we do as investigators. In the end, we're truth seekers. That's what we are. We're not the lawyers. They're advocates for their clients, and the prosecutors are advocates for the government's position. But we as investigators, we are truth seekers. Veritas Knights is what we call them in our organization. That's our job. Yeah. So he told me, we don't have investigators. I wish we had investigators. And I said, we'd be able to do so much. And I was like, wow, you don't? So when I ended up getting an offer from the public defender's office, I decided to go that route because I said, let me give it a shot. And it turned out to be a pure investigative role. And what I learned quickly, Matt, is that all of a sudden I was recognizing I was no longer enforcing the laws defined by the statutes that are regulated and enacted by the legislature, the state legislatures, at the political whims of the Democratic or Republican parties. I was defending the Constitution of the United States. I was defending the Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial. I wasn't helping bad guys, and that really hit home right here for me. And it has for a lot. So I worked there, and then I left. I ended up going on my own in a private agency, specializing in criminal defense. Still maintained a contract to do work with the public defender in a lot of ways. Yeah. Then I ended up in 1994, started training. And in 2000, created the Criminal Defense Investigation Training Council. And we provide national certification and accreditation for criminal defense investigation. We do over 42 states in the U.S., the federal government. We even train the military now. So it's full circle for me back to the military, so cool. Training them in criminal defense. And so that's in a short nutshell where I am. So that's where we are today.
Yeah, that's not a short nutshell, but it's good, man. I mean, so many things.
It's tough to summarize after 37 years.
Yeah. So many things to unpack here, man. I mean, you just said so many awesome things. So, I mean, you're talking about the whole litigation, and I always recall back to F. Lee Bailey, the last time I saw him alive at a conference talking. There cannot be litigation without investigation, right? That was the tagline for the day. It sits with you, right? So it is.
Right up there in that corner is a picture of me and him back in 1996 when I worked with him on a homicide case.
There you go. I mean,
one of the most inspirational moments I ever had in tests. And I tell you, when I first met the man, and I was going to work with him, I was so intimidated. Yeah. As young investigators, a walking legend sitting across from me, going with my reports. And I was like, he was taking over a case I was on. And one of the best moments of my life is when he said, "This is great. I'm going to keep you on as the police."
This is good work. You don't suck. There you go.
You don't suck.
I tell you, man, like my story with him, I've told it before, but just real quickly again, I was at an alley event and I was late getting into the room because I was talking with friends and whatever, and there were literally no seats left. So I sat down at a table and I'm starting to eat my lunch, and he literally sits down with his entourage with me, and I ended up like sitting next to him, having lunch with him, and I'm just like, holy crap, like, I can't believe I'm eating lunch with Lee Bailey. And what a nice man, and really, really, really cool.
Very cordial, respectful, intelligent. People don't recognize that how And he loves investigators. The man loved us. I mean, I hate to say the past tense because it's sad when it passes, but he loved our profession. He would rather sit and eat lunch and dinner with the investigators than the lawyers.
Yeah, maybe that's why he came and sat next to me. Who knows?
Yep. No, absolutely.
So cool. And, folks that are getting into the industry, or if you've been in the industry for a bit and you focus on criminal, chances are you've probably taken one of your programs. I mean, your name is known, and that's why I wanted to have you on here today, just to kind of talk about, folks that are just getting into this, how they get started. Maybe folks that have been in for a while, and maybe they're burnt out, or they're not seeing the growth potential in what they're doing, because maybe they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So some of the pitfalls on there. It's always great to get somebody's perspective on things. We are going to take a quick break before we jump in to all that. So everybody sit tight, and we'll be right back. I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. You're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really, really amazing. And their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge, and really, really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship, analysis is really, really something that's cool. One of the other things about being involved with ScopeNow is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really, really great content. If you're a member of ScopeNow, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great, great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that ScopeNow is a part of that suite. Scopenow.com.
Are you an investigative professional with an international problem you can't solve? Conflict International has the knowledge and relationships to jump in for you. We compensate investigators for referring cases to our office. Contact us today for details. Conflict International uses insight, intelligence, investigation, risk management, and strategic solutions to solve problems troubling individuals and companies of all kinds, anywhere around the world. Whether you're planning to hire a person to a position of trust, carry out due diligence on a company, trace hidden assets, or require skilled boots on the ground, Conflict International investigators can seamlessly pursue a case across borders, offering a truly global solution. Find out about our extensive range of services at conflictinternational.com. Conflict International, global reach, international knowledge. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Going to the Tally Conference this week in League City, Texas? If so, come say hello to Matt. Learn more at tally.org. And check out the latest issue of PI Magazine, available online or via hard copy. Visit pimagazine.com to learn more.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Sperry, your host. We've got Brandon Perron here today, the legend, who F. Lee Bailey says his work doesn't suck, so that's good. So welcome back to the program. Okay,
my new tag, thanks to you.
There you go, right? Your new tag, right? Trademark that stuff. T-shirts. He doesn't suck. Yeah, I mean, listen, your passion for training, I don't think there's anyone out there, that puts in the time that you do to making sure that folks know what they're doing, right? So it's making sure in our industry that there's that certain level of professionalism and excellence, and it starts when we're first getting into it, but it also maintains over the way. So, like, if you've been doing this for a while, it doesn't hurt to brush up on things and talk about trends, techniques, what works. What I love about our industry is that so many folks now are sharing, and it didn't used to be that way.
You're right. Absolutely correct. Big secret. Everything was a secret,
Right.
They were afraid to share their techniques and knowledge because then they'd have competitors, and it was just the insecurity was really amazing, but it's changed. Thank the great organizations, all the state ones, national ones, NCISS, NALI, NDIA, all these organizations and the internet made the world get a lot more connected. I think that really helped a lot in our discipline, in any industry, really.
Yeah. It's funny, the internet can be a blessing and a curse, right? So I just interviewed an engineer recently for the show, and he had some real concerns in coming on because he was afraid there'd be content out there that if he had to testify, like, they may call him out on it. And I was like, yeah, we're not getting super technical, man. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
But there is that, right? So it's like, these are things that are out there in the ether forever, and you never know. You could say something or do something that could potentially cause you a problem later on, right?
You're right, 100%.
Yeah, you never know. Okay, so let's jump right into it, man. So you're a new investigator. You've just got out of law enforcement, let's say maybe a federal job or something like that, and now you're opening up your shop, and you say, I always had that passion for the who, what, when, where, and how, and why, right? We're all a certain age. We all read the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. We were into Sherlock Holmes and all that. So that question for finding out why things happen, I think if you're a certain age like us, that pushes you forward. So you want to do this for a living. What are some of the things getting into criminal investigations that an investigator should keep an eye open for and do?
First and foremost, I think no matter whether you have training from a position in that you held or you don't, if you're going to, I've always you need to be investigators in the private sector. We're going to go that route right now and talk about it. I believe they have to be a jack of all trades and master of at least one. You've got to be a master of one. Right. It's kind of like in martial arts and fighting, you can learn other arts and go train with them and even develop great skills, and you can even earn black belts in other martial arts, but you've got to be, that third degree, fourth degree black belt in the one primary that is yours, and then you adapt the others to work for you. So I think that's really important. And then where do you get that training from becomes crucial. Where are you going to get it? Who are you going to for that? So there's a lot of research that people have to do, especially if they're going to be outside their lane. And I want to make the point that I think you understand, and you come from law enforcement, you can be very successful, very accomplished. Well, when you leave law enforcement and come into private investigation, you are entering another career field. You're bringing some great skills with you. I did it too, but it was a real eye opener for me that when I went with this, with veteran status and accomplishment and commendation medals for what I did as an investigator. And when I went into the private sector, I had so much to learn. And what really helped was joining a state association. I really can't push that more to people. And the state one first. The national ones are important. One, pick one that suits you, or two that suits you, three even. So you can overdo it, I think, but pick two where you have a good fit. But the state one, you have to become part of the network, become part of the organization, learn the laws, the ins and outs, so you don't get in trouble. I mean, and get some mentors, peer mentors, colleague mentors who you can call and say, hey, what do I do here? So that would be my advice first and foremost.
Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. That's the whole reason Investigator's Toolbox is the same thing, right? So it's not, in a state, but it's created that community where folks can go for resources and training, and having that back and forth, and really having that expert.
You're so right. And it's, and what you say, Investigators Toolbox. So it's so nice to be able to, the technology allows us to have the kinetic networking connections on the local level and even national, but it's once a year, maybe, depends what you can afford. But with the virtual connections now, you can have contact with mentors and experts and such seasoned professionals who are ethical and the top of their field at your fingertips. I mean, it's like, just like we're talking right now, if you use that tool that's out there, and it's really inexpensive. That's what's amazing to me. Remember how much it used to cost before we had the internet? I'm 57 years old, and I remember when I started as an investigator, I was using a typewriter for reports, man. When we got a computer in our agency, it was like, wow, look at this, a computer.
I remember the video cameras, they on the shoulder. Right? I'm literally driving, and I got a camera on the shoulder. My boss wouldn't buy cell phones, and we had pagers, right? So I had to go dial the 800 number and call into the office,
and I remember when there were no cell phones.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's crazy. But with technology and things like that, it allows you to set up shop and to be a solo practitioner and kind of, not worry about all things, because you can manage things so easily. Even case management software, like we didn't have any of that stuff, Now you get cross-tracks, you can do everything. It's fantastic, man. You can keep track of everything and stay organized. So I'm going to take the whole state association thing that you said. I'm going to take it one step further. Not only be a part of your state association, serve on the board, right? Volunteer and make the effort to actually be a part of your state association. That is how you build relationships. And
that's a great advice for a new person too. I mean, it really is, because they don't have a reputation in that field, in that networking, arena. And it's a great way to develop leadership presence. It really looks great on your material too. I mean, you're a board member of the state association.
Yeah, I'm about to be the head honcho in January, and I don't know how I feel about that, but
it's called insane. I just want to point out.
Yeah, it's good, and I'm really looking forward to it. And the NCI is the same thing. So I'm a regional director in there, and I don't serve on a board in Nelly, but I know a lot of board members. So, it's like being present, right? So if you're in the industry, finding that mentor, is really, somebody who's going to help you along the way, especially on these criminal cases, man, because there's such a burden. I don't know how you do it, Brand, because there's such a burden on getting it right. Like this is life or death that you're talking about here for somebody. And, sometimes that can be very overwhelming, and you just need somebody to bounce it off of and kind of figure out, are you heading in the right way? Are you burning through a retainer and doing things that you don't need to be doing because it's not going to be in the best interest of the client? It's like, you may think that that's the right way to do it, but it may not be, right? So having those resources to bounce off and say, hey, I need another set of eyes on this, or just an opinion. I mean, it's priceless, right?
Oh, it absolutely. Just to have that behind you is kind of like when you think of a company, any company organization, big companies will have a board of directors. They're there for advice. They bring their expertise to the company's table to understand things. So you can build your own board of directors. You don't have to go informal. You don't have to call them that, but that's what they are, those mentors. You know? And people you met at these conferences, you know, that you say, wow, you heard them speak, you sat with them, you talked to them. So they, you know, their personality isn't the only thing that impressed you. Maybe it was their subject matter expertise that really, you're like, wow, they really know what they're doing. And that's someone you want to bring into your fold to help you build your company or maintain and sustain your existing. It needs a little refreshing and needs to, you know, go a little deeper. But that being said, I do want to point out that becomes very important when you're coming into it, you know, and establishing relationships. But once you make a decision, for instance, if you're going to talk about criminal defense, if you're going to make the decision to go into criminal defense, you have an ethical obligation, a duty to seek specific training related to criminal defense. It is complicated. It is a legal investigation field with depth beyond many others when it comes to the ins and the outs and the pitfalls and the landmines that you could step on that can ultimately destroy a client's life, that you could destroy their chance at constitutionally guaranteed due process. You know, you've got to understand those things. Like, do you understand the true nature of that you are an agent of counsel when you work with an attorney on a defense case, and that you enjoy attorney-client privilege, work product protections? Do you understand the confines of those protections? I hear investigators who just say, I'm going to start doing criminal, and they take on a criminal case, and who hired you? They go, well, the family did. I go, who's the lawyer? Well, I'm working with one yet. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I hate
You're
those.
working on a criminal case with no attorney-client extension protections on you? Are you nuts? Well, I have my license, you know, I have protections for my license. To go, not in those cases you don't sport. You know
what's crazy on that though is that you get a lot of these attorneys that say, I don't want to get involved until you hire an investigator. Like, do some legwork already and show me that you know, this case is worth my time. So it's like the family's getting that kind of direction from an attorney, because like it's,
well, they get advice
weird,
from
man.
what time. And that, you know, you talk about, you know, I'm a big one as the investigator's going to do criminal defense in any discipline, but I'm going to stick in my people who, my training participants, my students, the people I've trained always say that if you said, what's Brandon's motto? They say, stay in your lane. That's my motto.
Yeah. Stay
in your damn lane. You know what I mean? Become a subject matter expert in this lane. You may know a little bit about other things, but this is why they hired you, because you're the expert here. And that's where you need to be the go-to person. You really do.
Very best at it. I mean, that's me. For me, it's personal injury. I mean, I've gotten that reputation in New York on the plaintiff side. You know, it's like these big law firms. Like,
complicated. It's a complicated.
Very complicated.
There's a lot of depth to it. You know, see, for me, that's not my thing. So if somebody asked me a question, I would say, I want to give you an unqualified answer on that about what I understand, but you need to call this person or this person and I don't do that. You know, that's not my thing. You know,
that whole unqualified thing, my wife has a term for it. She calls it a Matthewism. So, just here we go, Matthewisms again. Like, you know, go get the truth. Somewhere in between is a Matthewism, and the truth is where it is, right? So yeah, you're right about that. You know, just being able to focus on that, and honestly, like, that's how you succeed in this business, right? You can't do everything, and you know, as much as you think you can, you really can't. And it's such a broad industry. Which is why, you know, getting back to the networking and you know, increasing that ability to have things covered. See, I always take, you say stay in your lane. Like, to me, I always take the approach is, you know, just be good at your one thing, and you forward everything out to everybody else. I'm a connector. Like, that's my thing. Be a connector, right? It's not a matter of doing it, it's a matter of it getting done right. I would rather point a client to somebody like you that I know is going to hit it out of the park, and it's like, do you and I have an agreement? Am I getting referral out of it? Maybe not. Who cares? That's not what it's about. It's about it being done correctly, because when that person maxes their car up or they get hit by somebody, I know they're going to come back to me, and I'm going to get the case right.
And extend it further. I actually don't take referrals on stuff. No. I don't want it. I tell clients, I want you to go to this person. Well, can't you be like the liaison and go, no, you don't need me. You just be paying me money for nothing. You can talk to this person. They're the expert in it. And I don't want that from even my colleagues. Say, hey, what if I give you a referral fee? I go, no, keep it. It's yours. And I found that over the years has built such a better relationship with people that they know I'm not doing something in expectation of something. I'm just because you're getting this from me because I think you the man or you the woman in this. You're the person to go to in this. And I got my own thing. I'm not looking to make a piece of anything. I'm just not.
You bring up a good point there, because there is that whole what's the right thing to do here. And I think it's on a case by case basis, right? Depending on what's being asked to be done and whatever,
Yeah, it is.
So just having the relationship, having the person come back to you, I think is just more important. It's like, okay, so, I've had people actually call me because they think I'm the person to handle it, right? So I got the show here, I'm out there, people know who I am. So I get calls all the time on cases that I'm not specialized in. So it's like, I'm the bridge, right? Okay, call this guy, call that guy. I've gotten to the point, like, I'm so busy with my regular work, I don't even want to try and pick this thing up. I don't even want to give a half try on it, because I know it's, you think you want me, but you don't. Like you think you need me, but you don't.
No, right about that. You're right. I think that's a great personal awareness. There's a lot of, we have to, as we develop in our field, we have to, along with our character, along with our integrity, maintaining that, you start to develop, if you are in a true evolutionary path, you develop a degree of humility where you know your limitations, and you feel that's also part of, can I really do the most for this client in this particular situation? Or is it more important for me to maintain my integrity and my reputation by steering them in the right direction? And then they attribute that to you. Like, that just builds your brand up even more when you're willing to be humble and say, I'm probably not the best choice for that. And it lands very well on people, if you ever notice. Like,
wow. They appreciate it. And their next question is, well, then who is, right? So always have that answer ready.
In that position, I'm like, I don't know. I can point to someone who may know, and now they're kind of on this trip of trying to connect them to the right people. Sometimes I don't know.
So the other thing that I don't like that people do is they dump their garbage on you sometimes too. Like, this person's a crazy person, I can't deal with it, just call Matt at Satellite. And I'll get these calls, I get these referrals, I'm like, why would you do that, man? Like, this person obviously is mentally ill. Why would you say that to me?
For that, crazy people have called Matt.
Yeah. It's like, I get it all the time. It's like somebody calls and they're like, and it's something complicated and something I would never even dream of taking. I'm like, why would you refer that over to me? But it happens. And you're right, you got to be humble, you got to be you got to be really upfront with people on this stuff. And 9 times out of 10, what they're calling you about is probably the most horrific thing that happened in their life. Whether it be an accident or criminal charge or death or whatever. It's like, being able to help navigate somebody in that situation, I think is rewarding. It's part of that, going back to what you were saying earlier on, that investigation and you feeling you're part of something, or that quest for getting the truth, as opposed to working that schedule and doing this and that whole law enforcement vibe thing. You get that difference on things, for sure.
I like to put it if I could put it in this perspective for me, I always, in my philosophy for investigators doing criminal defense, for instance, is that they are a defender of the Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Okay, they are a constitutional defender. They are an impartial and objective advocate of the truth. That's the philosophy. But I also, to kind of build on what you just said, when a client comes to them, they are facing quite possibly the worst thing in their life. There is a proverbial fire-breathing dragon at their gate. It is pounding on the door, and when you come to them, they're not looking for a social worker. They're not looking for someone to hold their hand and to hug them. They're looking for someone who has empathy, but at the end of the day, They want a warrior. They want a knight. They want someone who is going to stand up to that dragon, proverbial armor, shield, and sword in hand, and they're going to slay it. They're going to take on agents of deception, and they're going to just, break them down and expose them for what they are. They want strength. They want confidence. They want intelligence. They want, knowledge. That person, you got to show you are the warrior for the job, and you better have the training, the experience, and the support mechanisms and network to back it up. And that's what I like to push. And that's what we offer through the Criminal Defense Investigation Training Council. All of the things I just described, the fundamental training through academy level programs, a philosophy, a methodology to apply to every case, whether it be small or large, a network of the finest criminal defense investigators in the country, in the United States and the world, in the state, private, federal, military. Your network is vast of the experience, and a lot of the people we have as board certified criminal defense investigators, because they're also NALI members and CLIs. I mean, a lot of them are the same people. They're interchangeable. But I believe in that concept of who we are as investigators. We help people by being strong.
Yeah, I feel like Peter Jackson or Michael Mann's going to call you to write a screenplay or something, and then you're selling it. This is great. I want to do this job. I want to watch that movie. Very cool.
Right.
I think it also comes down to you're talking about humility, but you're also talking about vindication, right? And being able to be that expert in your arena, and what happens when you get that vindication is when you get guys like F. Lee Bailey that say, hey, this is good. You did what I would expect to be done, or having that conversation with an attorney, where they're just like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Right. I've got my opinion. I've got my theory, but now you tell me your theory. And when you're getting those types of questions from the heavy hitters in your industry, your clients that are the best of the best at what they do, and now they're soliciting your opinion on things, that's the vindication that okay, I'm in the right place at the right time doing the right.
Well, you are in that role. You got to remember they're in an adversarial, arena, and they're the general. That top lawyer is the general, and they may have an legal staff. Those are those officers. You're their intelligence officer. They're going to battles, through hearings, they're fighting the big fight, and they're preparing for war and trial. You're their intelligence officer. And when they ask you your opinions, it's because they want to know. They want to know, what do you think of this? They do respect you, but they also respect your perspective as an investigator. As you conduct fact-driven investigations, and you look at evidence differently. You look at witnesses differently. You understand not only the facts, but the factual nuances of an entire event. You see alternative narratives where other people don't. You don't even notice you can look at a narrative that someone's promoting, and immediately you're developing alternatives to that narrative built upon the same foundational evidence that one's built upon. That's a talent. It really is.
Contrapositive, man. You got to always consider alternate possibilities on things. I mean, that is what the lawyers are trained when they first are taking the bar and doing all this other stuff. You have to do it. And I think as folks that are just out there doing the work every day, they show up to an accident scene or crime scene or all that. And if you've got a predisposed idea to how something happened, it can be helpful, but it can be hurtful too, right? You always have to consider okay, I got to rule things out. Not I got to prove my theory. I got to rule out all the other theories, right? If you take that approach, you're going to be more successful doing it, right?
I always promote the concept. Think of it as every theory as a hypothesis. Mm-hmm. And a hypothesis should either be proven or disproven. Yeah. And it's the process of elimination. And you mentioned Sherlock Holmes earlier. First, you eliminate the impossible. Right. Whatever's left, however improbable, must be the truth. That's our job. So sometimes the process of elimination is important. But if your ego makes you stick to your original theory because you're not open-minded enough to consider other alternatives, you're going to get stuck. Yeah. And you're going to, when you talk about training, you said people come over for training. I always say, someone says, well, I have 25 years of experience. I don't need any training. I've met many professionals, my friend, who have 25 years of experience, but what they have is 1 year, 25 times.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great perspective, man. Wow.
They do the same thing they've been doing for 20 years. They have not evolved. They have not grown. They have not expanded their capabilities. They haven't done it. They just refuse to because they know it all. Their ego won't let them do it.
Yeah,
You know?
it's tough. I think, professionally reaching that point and saying, okay, like I need to do that continuing education, and it's a balance there too, right? So I get it sometimes too. So maybe within that 25 years of somebody doing one thing the same over and over again, like they're a mom and pop shop, they're the sole practitioner, and for them to take the time off to go to one of your trainings or go to a conference, and it's like, okay, I'm not making money there, and I'm paying money to attend this. I got a flight, I got a hotel, I'm paying for the actual conference. Great, I'm laying that money out. But now on top of that, I'm also not billing because I'm the only guy who does work in my office. So it's a double hit, right? And that keeps people, handcuffed from getting better at what they do.
Hey, 2022, brother.
Yeah.
It's called distance learning. We have it too. The majority, so many of our people train. The Army, we train all of the Army criminal defense investigators now, all of them. It's all distance, all of them. So they can be on the job and work. It's less expensive. It's cost effective, and they get to do it as they're going. Many of our students that come through the training are using distance learning now because you can save $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 doing it that way because of the hotel travel away from work, and it's flexible. Do it over a 12-week period, and you work on the distance learning when you want to work on it. It's not set time. So there's options out there if you're connected.
What it does to the distance learning, I'm about to do something for FAPI in a couple of weeks. They're smart. They made it, there's free, right? So you can actually just go virtual learning for free, which is crazy. And they get like the best of the best in the industry of things. So it's giving you that exposure to have that interaction, that training through distance. You're hearing people that you normally may not hear. You're getting that perspective from somebody that chances are, if you weren't in that point in your career where you could afford to go to a conference and all that other stuff, like you're never going to be blessed that way. But if you can attend something virtually and still be fed and still be blessed with the knowledge on that, it could potentially be a game changer for you as well.
Sure.
So I do, like, I appreciate the back and forth. I am a little burnt out on the virtual stuff, to be honest with you, just because the last few years it's been a lot, but I love going places and hanging out.
It's picking up. I'm already like booked through the end of the year. Every day you got to go to, I'm going someplace. I mean, whether I got to train the Marines in September out in San Diego, I got to go back to San Diego again to train the federal public defenders. I got to go to Minnesota in September for their public defender, and they're all ramping up. Yeah. I just did Georgia. And you're talking, 60, 70, 80, 100 people in the room, and they are starved. People are just like, oh, we're back in person touching people.
Yeah, it's like I go to these things, I go to my friends like, okay, where are we going today? It's over, like when the hospitality suite's done. Okay, I need to hang out. I need to go, and then we need to like never talk about it again the next day, like the things that happened last night.
Done. Conference, that rule, all the rules are coming back.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, business gets done in the hospitality rooms. The business gets done, the after hours. That's where you build your relationships. And man, I've met so many great people in this industry. Yeah. People ask me all the time, like, how do you find so many guests for these shows? I'm like, I just know people. I go to things, I'm a chatty Cathy. I can't just
friends in the field, and they live someplace else. They don't live near me. They live 1,000 miles away, 1,500 miles away, and it's great because I met these really outstanding people and professionals, and they've become lifelong friends. But I really don't get to see them much, And when COVID hit, you see them all, and so you kind of starve for that. So and then some people in our profession, you'll see them in every conference there is, because some of it is they need, because we are such lone wolves all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a time for you to connect the colleagues and build those friendships. I really do.
I always love to go to these things. I love to pick the brains of people that are different points of their career. Excuse me. So like somebody who maybe has more employees than me, or maybe they've stepped away from the day-to-day field, operations, and now they're managing more. Like, I love having those conversations, right? How did you get here? What does your day look like? Like that kind of stuff is good too. So you're getting fed professionally and this is how you do this is how you do that. But also as a business owner, it's like you have the opportunity to talk to people. What's your business model? How did you grow your business? How do you market to attorneys? How do you market to private industry? Like, you can talk to your peers and they're telling you what's working and what's not working.
Yeah. And very straightforward, pragmatic way too. That's what I've always enjoyed about those conversations,
Yeah, it's all good stuff. All
really is
really good stuff. And, there are opportunities to go to places all the time. Like you said, you're booked out for, for the rest of the year. They're already, I'm starting to plan next year already. I was just talking to my wife today, like, okay, we want to take a vacation next year. And she's like, do me a favor, check your conference schedule, like where you're going to be, and we'll plan around that. Which
it works.
Yeah. She understands
it. Get to bring the family. The one thing I will say about coming back into it now, I just did my real first big one. I've always done the on-site training, even locally, because we do a lot locally through the public defender system in Florida. So every week I'm training people, every week. Right. But traveling, I just did my first one in Georgia for the Georgia Public Defender's Office, and I did 3 days. And I got to say, after the COVID thing, I wasn't completely up to speed on I do 3 full days on my feet, 8 hours a day of high impact. And
you
by
lost your stamina.
Dude, I was dying. I was, my feet and my legs were like hurting, and you have the adrenaline rush, when you do these whole day things, 3 days straight yourself. And until the end, then you just crash. And I told my wife, I was like, "Oh,
you got COVID atrophy."
Hard.
We got a new terminology: COVID atrophy. There you go.
That's right. It was all here. It was great. Everything at the lecture was going and the information's flowing, but it was the body was going, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, even the traveling. I mean, now traveling sucks, right? All the delays, it's really bad. But it's like you forget and you go back and you go like, how was I doing this before COVID? Like, like how was I living that life and doing that schedule? Now
you're right.
Slow down and you look back and you're just like, man, I was on fire. That's not good.
Yeah. I've reassessed it. I've really reassessed it and just started being very, there's some things I'll do, some things I won't. And I'm being particular in respect to, I'm also being a little tougher on fees and stuff like that. I have to say that I'm being a little, but I think that's also come with being maturity of professional maturity and being around a while. You start to recognize that you've kind of earned the ability to say, pick and choose, and I'm not doing this. And this is and I think it's a hard thing for investigators in general, even when they're starting, don't you?
Yeah.
How much do you charge and when do you stick to your guns? And you learn after a while, it's better to charge the appropriate fee for what you're worth and maybe do less cases and make more money.
Yeah.
As opposed to take everything and charge too little and burn yourself out.
So here's what happens. I had this happen literally like maybe a month ago, or even probably less than that. So we had a firm that we were doing business with and a good amount of business, and then just stopped. We just weren't getting work from them. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. It went its way. Right. So then I got a call from the attorney and it was like, I need you to handle this thing for me. And it's a tough thing I need you to do, but if you can get it done for me, he's like, we'll have you guys back. You can come, you'll get all my work in my office. Right. So I was like, okay, we'll give a shot at it. It was a hard problem to solve, but man, we solved it, and we solved it quickly. And so then he calls back. He's I'm sticking to my word. I'm going to have you come in. Right. So I come in to have a meeting with him, and he's like, okay, so here's the deal. You guys are a little pricey, and we had trouble like justifying that. But then we saw the work. We actually saw the work that you do. And like, I have a guy that works for me and he's fantastic. He actually carries a printer in his car, right? So he was going out to take a statement from somebody and they had given us some prepared statement and there were changes that needed to be made, right? So he had his computer, he logged in his laptop, he did what he needed to do, and he printed out things on the site. And they were like, our old investigator would have never done that. We would have had to like get charged to go back and make another visit and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, you guys were paying you more, but you're worth it, right? So they're now over that, you know, hey, this is too pricey thing. And let's face it, the world is upside down now. Inflation rates are crazy.
That's right.
You have to charge rate. Like, you got to raise your prices. Don't sit there. I was having this conversation with a process server the other day. We were having lunch and I was like, how do you live, man? Like, you're charging like $75 a serve. You know, he's like, oh, well, my competitor keeps undercharging me. So it's like they have the same clients, they're going back and forth and they're lowering, oh, I'll lower it by $2. I'll lower it by $3 and get the business, right? But they're dumbing down their industry. And it's getting to the point where it's like, hey, man, like, you're not going to be able to eat. And I'm like, you need to stick to your grounds and go, are you unhappy with that guy? Is he not getting it done for you? Pay a little bit more and I'll do it correctly. Like, you got to bill yourself as being the elite or the better option. It'll cost you more, but it being the better option.
But it is a bold move. It's when once you get past that, it's easy to do, but it is hard for the you know, newer people when they got to make, or even people been around for a long time and wonder why they're not making any more money. They didn't create a business that's profitable. They created a job. Yeah. You know,
I spent so many years not charging like credit card admin fees, not charging extra for mileage. There were years, like I went 10 years without charging mileage. Just like throwing money away. And I'm just like, oh, I know my industry. They're not going to want to pay it. And the second I put it in there, nobody ever said anything. You know, it's like, it's crazy. But that's my own stupidity, my own fear. I'm going to price myself out of the market, right?
Well, we all go.
Say, I did it for the longest, you know, out of fear.
I've had to raise fees and even from training and stuff like that, and nobody says anything. The one story I have what you did is we raised our rates on investigations for the agency part of our organization. And one of our longtime clients called about it. Said, hey, you know, I want to ask you, why did your rates go up? And, you know, there's a little silence when he said it because it's like,
exactly. Choose your answer wisely. Brandon.
And I just went, inflation, cost of doing business has increased. He goes, oh yeah, you got a point. I knew that. And then he says, you know what? I got to change my rates. I haven't changed my rates in 10 years. And he like thanked us because he had not changed his legal fees to charge clients because I think the industry's getting a run. You know, they get, and we're the worst. Private investigators, we are as bad at charging for our charging clients as attorneys are good. You know what?
Yeah, stop undercharging one another. Just got to stop it, guys. It's terrible. It's bad practice. Not good for anybody. You know, really there's enough business out there for everyone. Just charge a good rate. You know, that's all.
Well, just think of how many lawyers in a local area actually don't use investigators. I mean, when you talk about an open market, it's amazing. And it's because they don't know. I always make a point when I train lawyers. The first thing I say in every meeting, training lawyers to establish authority, I say, could anybody tell me how many classes you had to take in investigation in law school? And they all look at each other. And go, 0. I go, exactly. So now we know who the subject matter expert is on investigation.
There you go. Go get your shine box. Fantastic.
Great Goodfellas reference.
There you go. Fantastic. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wind down here, man. This was great. We talked about dragons. We talked about generals. We talked about spies. We talked about ninjas and grandmasters and all this other stuff. I swear you got a screenplay in you, dude. Really.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So how do folks find you if they have more questions on this stuff? How do they get a hold of you?
Just go to our website at cditctraining.com, cditctraining.com, or in publicdefenderinvestigator.com. Same place, publicdefenderinvestigator.com. And everything you need there. And you can enroll in training for distance learning. You can see our dates of where we're going to be so you can attend those trainings. And And there's a lot of information there, articles, et cetera, that you can access, and just a list of all the board certified criminal defense investigators in the United States, approximately 500 of them from the government, private sector. So for contacting people that you may want to network with.
Awesome. Brandon, this was a long time in the making, but well worth the wait. I appreciate you.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. I appreciate everybody for listening. Thanks guys for tuning in.
Y'all have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, man. We'll catch you we'll have you on again. I promise I won't wait 150 something episodes to have you back on.
Hey, brother, keep killing it.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
Now, this was a great episode. Brandon was such an awesome guest, and we thank him for spending some time with us this week. We'd also like to thank Crosstrax, Scope Now, Conflict International, PI Institute for Education, and OREP for sponsoring our show. So make sure to support our great supporters. Have you thought about joining the Investigators Toolbox yet? Now's the time to get on board and join the fastest growing digital community for investigative professionals. Use code PIP 201836 to save 10% when you do. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com, and you can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible in the future. We'll be back next week with a new show. And make sure you tune in. Now stay safe out there.